Hello everyone, in this video I'm going to be showing you what I do for habitat in the winter for white-tailed deer, small game, and just general forest or timber stand improvement. Just a quick example, this is a black walnut that was in a location. There's another bigger walnut right beside it, and this one was not growing well. So I hinged, rather than killing it, I hinge cut it, laid it down, and then now it has some vertical growth coming out that wildlife can eat. Behind me is an old girdle cut that I'll show you, that I made on a non-desirable cherry here that was growing in between these other two trees. Since that tree had no potential to really make it into any future lumber and it wasn't improving the habitat, I girdled it, which severs what they call the cambium layer, which sends the nutrients up and down from the roots to the top of the tree, and killed the tree. So that was probably either last year or 2 years ago. This one's decaying pretty good. So this might have been a 2 year ago girdle, but by killing that tree, then you release the trees that are near it, because this would have been robbing nutrients from those trees. So what you're going to see me do in this video is walk through. Basically, I have, the farm is 70 acres and I have 25 of those as forest or woods. So I do it in small blocks. This is probably a 5 acre piece. Continuing down into the middle there is probably, like, I consider this one block. I'll do this today. Probably take me a couple hours. This is an aerial view of the farm. This is using the Onyx Hunt app. I use this almost every day. I have a subscription to it. But I am in this east block of woods here. That's where I'm standing and filming. I am standing basically where that cursor is right now. This block of woods is about 2 acres, and I'm managing this piece. It's kind of intermediate stage of maturity as far as the trees go, so I am slightly managing it for future lumber or harvest, but also, you know, wildlife habitat. And then this piece here in the middle is bedding, so I manage that for habitat, strictly habitat. No lumber or trees in there. That's just a bedding area and habitat for wildlife. This is my north finger of woods. This is my mature timber. Has a lot of old oaks in it. Same with this little tiny area here. That is where, like, kind of the feeding area. That's where they go to feed on acorns. And then this area where my cursor is now, where the creek starts, is bedding, including going down the creek line there. And then all of the fields are bedding. But this kind of gives you a layout of the farm, so you understand kind of how it's laid out. And I might reference this in future videos, just giving you the location of where I'm working on that given video. While I'm doing this, I kill poison ivy. I kill bittersweet, which is a vine, which I'll show you up here. Should get rid of privet, but in my case, there's a lot of it. But I want it in here because it's in the summer when it's full of leaves and green, it's cover, so you can see. Ideally, for wildlife to feel safe, they need cover. If I were to kill all that privet, you'd be able to see right through this patch of woods. So I leave some of the non-desirables for that reason, for cover, if it's not robbing a lot of nutrients from the trees next to it. But let's go look at that Japanese bittersweet. It's down here. But basically just go through and find trees that aren't gonna ever be lumber or logs, and remove them. Basically, whether you want to girdle it and leave it standing so it doesn't make a mess on the ground, you can hinge cut it, basically meaning lay it over on the ground so that the deer and wildlife can get to the nutrients in the canopy. If you can hinge cut it correctly, it will live and regrow, new growth down on the ground. Or just cut it down entirely. Here's another small girdle, which may or may not have killed this tree. I'll have to check here later. I'm looking for that bittersweet for you. Here it is. So here's Japanese bittersweet. You want to look for this and try to kill it. You can see what it does. It constricts, wraps and constricts other trees. It gets up to the canopy to get sunlight and then kills the tree that it climbs up. It's an invasive species. There is a native one. And the way to tell the difference, I think one of them has berries all over and one has berries at the tip. I forget which one's which. I'll put it as a comment here when I'm editing this video. Here's some Oriental bittersweet. You can see the berries on it. Kind of intertwines with everything else. So I cut it last year here. See the vine going up, but because I didn't cut, so I cut that, severed that from that, but you see how it reshot right there and went up, and that new growth is producing those berries, and those berries produce seeds, so it can will regenerate. So that's one drawback of not using chemicals, is that if it lives, it'll regenerate. So I went to the base of it and cut the root ball out. So hopefully that does it. You can see once one comes up, there's a whole bunch. So years prior, I've already gone through and cut these. So you can see they're already severed. But you can see the kind of damage they do if they make it the whole way to the top of a tree. I try to get rid of poison ivy. That's an old poison ivy that I would have killed probably last year. Here's a real big poison ivy vine that I might have missed. It looks dead though. I don't see a cut in it though. I'll hit that one here this year with the saw. Yeah, I don't see a cut in that one, so it's probably still alive. But I don't like getting poison ivy, so I try to kill that. You can see those oaks in the background. In the years prior, I would have cut any brush around the base of those. You can see it's a little more open there to try to release those, help those grow. I try to do that naturally. Walnuts, like black walnuts. Naturally, it's a chemical, I forget what it's called, that either the roots release, or I think it's like the debris, the nuts and stuff that fall, it kind of changes the pH or releases a chemical into the ground that not a lot of other stuff likes to grow near them. So they kind of protect themselves. But if there is a walnut that's like a really nice tree, I'll try to trim around it to release it. Here's another method you could use. It's called hack and squirt. You take a hatchet, put a couple hacks through that cambium layer and spray glyphosate, or there's different mixes you can use. I'll put a link to a good website reference for that. Penn State has some stuff too, but I did that 2 years ago. I would have hacked that and sprayed it, but I stopped using chemicals. I only did that 1 year, and I didn't like the idea of chemicals leaching down into the soil. So but it's effective. You can see this cherry's dead, so it does work. But the reason I would have killed this one is just basically it was not going to grow into a good lumber tree, and it wasn't helping any habitat. Here's another one I would have hacked and squirted. You can see it's dead. This is what 2 years of decay will do. Basically, this was 2 years ago. There's the hacks. You don't have to put very many hacks, depending on your concentration of spray, but pretty effective. There's poison ivy. I did miss this one last year, but basically just cut a chunk out of it so it can't regrow. If you really wanted to kill it, you'd spray that butt end down that goes down into the roots, because it probably will resprout from there. But once I have these cut once, it's easy for me to walk through and see where I cut and then just retrim any small new growth next year. But like I said, I don't like using chemicals, so I'm not going to spray that. You can see here's another cherry that I would have hacked and squirted 2 years ago. It's dead. Very dead. But anyway, just keep moving. Here's some of the decisions I struggle with. This branch of this big cherry is probably not helping it a whole lot, maybe hurting it more than anything, giving nutrients to that's never going to produce anything. Whereas you see this nice big trunk, almost perfectly straight, really big in diameter. This one's pretty straight. You can probably get a couple logs out of that tree. I would cut this, but I'm afraid like if I cut that and then maybe risk of disease at the cut or something, so I'm just gonna leave it. The tree can self prune it if it decides it doesn't need it. But here's a good example. So this smaller tree here, I don't know what that is, maybe an elm or something. Ash, maybe it's an ash. But anyway, it was never going to really have the potential to get large because this other tree beside it's already bigger. I think it's another ash tree. Rather than cutting it down at the ground, I cut it at a Y, like you're supposed to prune at Ys of the tree. And hopefully it will start regrowth kind of at head level so that deer can browse on it, and it produces more cover at like eye level rather than all of the cover in the food being up high at the canopy, since I didn't really need that tree anyway. So just some of the small stuff that I do when I'm walking through here. You can see an old poison ivy that I've cut, and this whole thing looks dead actually, which is good. I might have sprayed, that might have been the year that I hacked and squirted, so I might have sprayed it, but you keep working through. When I get near the edges, if I have a tree I don't want, so you can see I'm at the field edge, I'll hinge cut it over, even if, I mean, I don't really care if it grows new growth for food or browse, but more so for horizontal cover, kind of shielding, so that like when you're walking along this field edge, they can't see up through and you can't see down in, so they feel more protected. So it's one thing that I've been doing. I don't know, I'm open to advice if that's bad, but basically I just, rather than girdle it and leave it up in the air, I'll lay it over so that's kind of like cover. Fun walking through in the winter when there's snow on the ground because you get to see where they're bedding. It looks like these beds are reused consistently. We've had snow for over a month now, so the fact that those are dry means they're probably reusing them quite a bit. Kind of helps you learn, you know, they're laying off the roll of this hill. They have good visibility, and the wind is typically in their favor coming out of the west, which is that direction towards the corn crib there. So pretty interesting. You get to learn a lot about how they're using where their trails are. You know, it seems like this is a popular path. You get to see where the squirrels are storing all their nuts and stuff. Here's a good example of some hinge cuts. This maple, I think it's a maple, yeah. You can see it's generated new growth, and then I don't know if I can get it to focus here. They've nipped off the new growth, so it generates new growth basically at a level where deer can eat it. You can see it tries to shoot vertical growth out of the tree, grows down and then up. This has been nipped off at an angle probably last year. A lot of this is browsed, and then there's a bed right below it, so it gives them some cover and food. I bet if we walk down at that end, they probably nipped off any growth off of the tips of these limbs, although it looks like it might be dying out there. But this is a good example here. It reshoots, I hinged this tree, it reshoots right below the hinge, reshoots at the ground, which is all nipped off. Plus, tries to regrow vertical growth all along here, which is all food. Here's a couple hinge cuts. You can tell they're successful and alive because of the red buds and new growth shooting out here that's all eaten off. But anyway, this is an unsuccessful girdle. I even girdled it 2 times. You see the sap flowing out of it, but it generated new growth this year. These are all softwood. I can bend it without it breaking. It's all new growth. So I'm gonna hit it again with the saw here. what that does. Here's an example where poison ivy regrew. I cut a little section out. You can see what was left attached to the root is regenerated. It's going up the tree. So I'm gonna take this thing down to the dirt, see if that helps. One nice thing about hack and squirt or girdling and leaving a tree standing to die is that it will stand for a long time and decay, and bugs will get in it, and birds can eat the bugs. So it gives the birds, like animals can den in it, like especially if you kill a big tree that has like a big knot in it. Animals can live in it, plus bugs can get in the wood, and then you can see the birds pick apart the tree to eat the bugs. You can see all the bark from the birds knocking the bark off to get the bugs. So it gives lots of wildlife more food, and it will also help the trees around it by killing this, you know, non-desirable cherry. You know, it preserved these nicer ones beside it. So gives them more energy, more nutrients from the ground to get bigger, these other ones around it. One thing I'm learning is that squirrels might live, I always thought they lived in trees, like in nests. But they might live under trees. I mean, just beat down going in and out of there, and all their walnuts that they're eating. Then they got a trail going over here, and it looks like they're living under this tree. Let me know in the comments if that's true, because rarely ever in the winter do you see a squirrel in the trees, but sure seen a lot of sign going down underneath trees, and it living in my rabbit houses that I build too. Here's a rabbit house that's being used. A lot of tracks going in and out. Keeps it nice and dry under there. I have a video on how I build those if you want to watch it on my channel. That's it for this video. It's fun to watch in the spring when everything greens up and you've changed the habitat just a little bit. It's really fun to watch the wildlife utilize it. So here's just the spring's poults of turkey. Every spring we get a good group of turkey that show up on the farm, and it's rewarding to see that they use the habitat and nest in some of the structure that you create, and the browse and the cover and all of those things, all while improving the forest and the timber at the same time. So a lot of times you see on forums and pages for like habitat improvement, it says you can't have both. You can't have timber value and wildlife habitat. I think you can have both at the same time. It helps us that we have a good blend of agriculture plus woods, but I think that you could take a parcel of just woods and turn it into good habitat. So anyway, I'll be posting more of these videos throughout the winter of different things that I'm doing on our farm. If you want to follow along, please subscribe. I would appreciate it. Thanks for watching.